Welcome to Proven and Probable. I'm your host, Maurice Jackson. Joining us today is James Pettit. He is the President, CEO, and Director of Aben Resources. Mr. Pettit, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Mr. Pettit, for someone new to the story, who is Aben Resources and what is the thesis you're attempting to prove?
Well, Aben is a gold exploration company, so it's a junior exploration company. It's located in Western Canada. We have 3 projects underway. The primary focus of the company is in the Golden Triangle, northwestern BC. It's called the Forest Kerr project. That's the one that we just put out some pretty gangbuster assays on our first hole of 2018. So it's a very good start. We've also got a project in northern Saskatchewan, which is also gold, and in the Yukon, right next to Golden Predator, which is also a very interesting gold project.
You discussed 3 of your projects here. Beginning with your flagship project, Forest Kerr is approximately 23,000 hectares. What type of lithology is prevalent there?
Well, the size of the property is being very long and narrow. It's 40 kilometers long. Probably 10 kilometers wide. The reason it's shaped the way it is because we acquired land that is right along a massive structural feature, which is right in the heart of the Golden Triangle. It's called the Kerr Fault. And that kind of acts in our minds as an engine for a lot of what has been discovered there over the last 3 decades anyways. You need that engine, right? And that's where potentially a lot of the fluids come in off these subsplays off of it. So, it's prime location. Took a while to get it. Took about almost a year, 8 months to a year to acquire. There's 3 different properties, and we're earning 100% in the 3 that incorporate that whole land package.
Now, Aben already has historical data on the Forest Kerr project. Is that correct?
Lots. Yeah. Each one of those properties came with a treasure chest full of past historical data, because there's been a couple cycles up there. The initial discoveries of Snip and Eskay, and then back in the 90s, you had another run up there, and now, and it's just started about 3-4 years ago. It's made a big difference with all the new access. The infrastructure is fantastic. Massive power generating plant on the Eskay River, which is at the south end of our property. Massive generating system. Highway runs right up beside the whole region. Highway 37 goes all the way up to Yukon and Alaska. It's all paved now. And then we have access in the northern part of our property is Galore Creek Road, heading to the Galore Creek mine, which looks like it could get new life because Newmont's now invested in it. And on the south side is the access road into the AltaGas Power project.
So what you've just shared with us kind of ties into my next question. Who initially conducted the initial drilling at Forest Kerr? And after that initial data was collected, why did the drilling stop?
Well, like I said, it's been 3 waves of exploration up there. And initially, the initial discovery would have been back in the days of this famous or infamous mining promoter Murray Pezim with one of his companies. Ron Nedlitsky, who was my chairman, was in that. He ran that company. He discovered Snip and was involved in the discovery of Eskay Creek back in those days. And then it just ended very quickly because the price of gold collapsed. And then again, you've got another resurrection in gold. Interest starts again up there, and it sort of falls out of favor again for the same reason. Not necessarily about gold. It could be any reason, but this high risk venture market just took a downturn, and people just left their shovels in place and walked away. And now we come back because you've got, now that Eskay is shut down, Snip is shut down. Snip is now being resurrected by another company of Ron Nedlitsky's. There's more exploration work going on around Eskay Creek. You've now got Imperial Metals Red Chris mine right up in the north corner of the Golden Triangle. That's a big copper project that's now in production, and you've got Pretium with their Brucejack project down in the south of us. That is a really high grade, big project. So there's, more discoveries are being made. There's some pretty good discoveries last year being made. Probably the biggest year of exploration up there. Garibaldi's come out with a nickel discovery. GT Gold has come out with, up towards the Red Chris mine. They're working on a project there that's been turning out some pretty good numbers, and I think pretty soon they'll have a good-looking resource. And then what we've just found is kind of a, it's an amazing. It's probably the highest grades we've seen in Western Canada in decades, in a one hole. But that zone we've hit had 3 of our holes from last year. That's what brought us back this year, and it's basically confirming it. And now we're trying to get a handle on the orientation of it and the structure, which just means we got to drill more holes around it to expand on it.
Interesting to note, and I want to commend the geological and technical acumen of Aben Resources team here. You've reviewed the historical data and recently commenced a drill program, and you just released some fascinating assays. What can you share with us?
Yeah. What I'll tell you about the historical data, when you've had up to 20,000 soil and rock samples taken across the whole property, and just trying to remember the number of holes, 120 holes drilled historically before us going there. We've got a tremendous amount of data, and then you've got to fine-tune that down and prioritize a series of targets. And this boundary north zone is the best target, and so we're gonna test it and see how big it is and how big it can get. But first, you have to get a handle on the orientation, like I just said, and it's a very complex area. This whole Golden Triangle, I envision it as an island chain of volcanoes crashing into the North American plate, and it's unique to the world. There are some comparisons to the Philippines and that sort of geology, but this has got a lot of, it's crushed, it's turned over, it's upside down, it's sideways, so you end up with a lot of VMS. You end up with a lot of structurally controlled systems and a lot of hydrothermal events, which is great. That's the high-grade stuff, and there's a lot of porphyries in there. It's a real jumble. It's really an impressive area.
Can you comment on the grades that we just received on the 9th of August on the press release?
Oh yeah. Well, that hole. It surprised us. We actually drilled a 45 and a 50 degree angle. Those holes last year were 45, 50, and 75. So as we approach what we were drilling last year, we're coming in underneath. And to be honest, I thought we'd hit more of the same. Last year there was some really great numbers. 6.7 gram gold with good percent copper and good grams silver over 10 meters. That's okay. There's lots of that around there. And then we had a hole that was almost 11 grams over 12 meters. That's really great. That's getting better. But these were in very broad intersections. You could extend those out to, that first hole was actually extended out to 387 meters, but that would be like a quarter gram. But it was consistent, so that means there's consistency there. And the same with that second hole I just mentioned. It stretched out over 122 meters. That was 1.2 grams. So there's big broad consistency. Now what we just did is came in slightly under. There'd probably be a 40 meter separation, let's call it, between the holes. And that hole had 4 intercepts in it. 4 distinct intercepts, and you don't often see that. And the headline one was spectacular. It was 10 meters of 38.7 grams. Within that was 62.4 grams over 6 meters, and that's spectacular. That's just one intercept in that hole. You've got additional intercepts of 22 grams over 4 meters. You've got another intercept of 3.9 grams over 13 meters, and another one of 8 grams over 6 meters. And one of those holes had really high copper attached to it. But that's neither here nor there. Last year's holes were pretty much correlated to chalcopyrite. Whenever you hit chalco, you can determine whether it's massive chalco, you'll have high-grade gold, similar to what GT gold, what the environment they're in. This hole underneath what we just came out with, very little chalco. It's carbonate. So we've now got a new mineralizing event in the same area. So there's lots of surprises to be had. We've still got 7 holes to report in this immediate zone. It's going to be interesting for us because it's very complex, and we do need a handle on the orientation, and this will give it to us. The more holes you can put in there, plus we're bringing in oriented core, so that we can get a real handle on it. And once we do that, then we know what angle to hit, because apparently the angle is making a big difference, because you can see what we just came out with.
Well, I want to be one of the first to congratulate you on a great start here to this drill program here.
And just to let everybody know, I'm the one that's not the geologist. I'm the corporate guy, but I got enough geology background to have a pretty good understanding of it all. But we do have good people. Ron is excellent. So pretty much retired, but he's still a very, very sharp guy. And then Tim Termundi is very active as a director, and he started his career there with Ron.
Well, we'll be able to cover the entire team here later in the interview. One of the virtues I like is the use of optionality by Aben Resources. You've essentially taken over projects that were capital constrained due to infrastructure and glaciers now that have been since receding. Although early, the drill program is validating the thesis, and that's very, very intriguing. Mr. Pettit, we've covered your flagship project. Let's move to the east and discuss the Chico project. What can you share with us regarding the Chico project?
Well, it's got a fair amount of historic information attached to it. It's in an area that people don't associate looking for gold, and that'd be Saskatchewan. I mean, it's got the one gold mine, Claude Resources, which is just east of L'Orange, south of the Athabasca Basin, where everyone looks for uranium. But it's an exposed greenstone belt, I guess is what you can call it, in the middle of the prairies. It's the sediment layer is in that area. I guess this is uplifted a bit, and it's also associated to a major fault called the Tabinor Fault that runs from the middle of the Athabasca Basin up by Rabbit Lake all the way down to South Dakota, which the Homestake mine, the huge Homestake mine, was associated to the Tabinor Fault. And off that fault are all these splays, and that's where the Seabee and the Santoy deposits came from, Claude Resources. And then I'm south of there along the Tabinor, just to the east, the west of the Tabinor Fault. And we've got these shear zones, we call them splays, coming off there, and they offer up tremendous surface samples. And historically there have been a few holes from old companies. Once again, one of Ron's old companies was in that area, and over the years there's been several holes drilled, and they've encountered gold at shallow depths, and we're going to go back in. Fortunately for us, Silver Standard, which is now SSR, has bought the Claude Resources mine for $337 million, and they've optioned all the ground between them and us, called the Fisher properties, and they're drilling 18,000 meters of exploratory holes using a exploration thesis that yes, you got to be on these splays. Yes, there's some sort of an intrusion. There are geophysical targets down below that come up to about 200 or 175 meters deep, and that's what they call their discovery horizon. And we're just south of them, and I've got this massive geophysical dome right underneath us. It comes up to 200 or 175 meters deep, and by the time I get in there to do the work we want to do, they will have come out with some sort of information as to how successful they've been. So it's going to work out perfectly for us. Now, I will give a caveat. I was going to do it this winter, but we had all the approvals. We discussed everything with the First Nations when we moved in and put the camp together. Some of the trappers, who are a little more, I don't want to say radical, but they're just a little more upset. And there was a election going on, the band election, and they came to the camp and asked us to leave. And I just said, you know what, fine. So we just packed up and left. And now they want us back because the election's over, and whoever won, and the government wants us back in there in a hurry. So we'll put that one together for the winter because it's a perfect place to drill in the winter. Saskatchewan's all frozen. You can move rigs around easy, and transportation is all by sled or skidding in or helicopter. So it's good. It's not mountainous.
Now, James, for those of us that are concerned about jurisdiction, what did the Fraser Institute remark about Saskatchewan?
Well, the #1 jurisdiction in the world, or one of the top, and it is. I'm involved in I'm a chairman of a uranium company, Sky Harbor Resources, and it's a great place to work. But we just happen to have some upset guys that were fighting with the council or whatever, and the election's coming up, and they saw us there, and they said they weren't informed, and that happens. The government, it went right to the premier's desk, and they basically done some things for us in terms of assessments. We don't have to file assessments this year because it really surprised them. This wouldn't normally happen, and now we've been back up there 3 times with our people to just see how things are, and are you going to be okay with us going back in?
I really appreciate your veracity regarding what's going on currently there at the Chico project. Finally, we have one more project to discuss, and it's located in the Yukon, which is the Justin project. What has Aben Resources excited about the prospects there?
Well, it's a bit of a sleeper. We actually drilled there in 2011, 2012 when the Yukon was really, really raging, and we came up with what we thought was an intrusion-related gold system, which can be very large and a little bit lower grade, maybe 2 gram to 3 gram, but they can be big. That's what Fort Knox is in Alaska, for example. But that Tintina belt is known for it. But as you get away from the intrusion, you start getting fracturing in this, I call it the country rock. So you get these big fractures and you get these big veins as you get away from it all. And that's where Golden Predator is. That's the 3 Aces project, which is, they've been there for years. They're spending a lot of money. It's very high grade. They adjoin our property. And what we did, because where we're connected, where we're touching each other's property, we did a soil sampling program last year, and we took a 30-kilogram sample and sent it in for gold grain analysis, and just to get a grain count. We want to know if we're close to this hydrothermal systems that they're looking at. And it came back pretty startling. You got 30 kilograms worth, and you get over 2,000 gold grain samples in that sample. And 80% of them or more are pristine, meaning they haven't mobilized. They're probably sitting on it or thereabouts, very close. So that's what we're doing this year. We're taking a mechanical backhoe up there. We've got to fly it in, and we're going to trench, and we're going to see. And the fellow that's running, going to be overseeing what we're doing, is we used to run the 3 Aces project, and he's knows the area like the back of his hand. He did look at it last year. He says, yeah, you're probably sitting, within 10 meters. That's his guess. And so we've called that zone the Lost Ace because Golden Predator's got the 3 Aces. And we'll see what happens. Golden Predator right now is drilling right on our boundary. So that's going to create some excitement later in the year.
And speaking of that, so you're looking at the end of the calendar year for us to get an update on the Lost Ace. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Mr. Pettit, before we discuss the management team and numbers, are there any reversionary interests on these projects?
There are a few. Chico, we're earning 80% from a company called Eagle Plains, which one of our directors runs Eagle Plains, Tim Termundi. We will earn 80% by spending a couple $1 million over 5 years and issuing shares to them. And it's not that onerous. It's, if we find out, you structure these deals so the first year is fairly lenient and you can get enough information to determine whether you want to move forward. The Forest Kerr project, we're earning 100% interest in all three of those projects by issuing stock to the underlying owners and then guaranteeing $3 million worth of work across all three of them. That's easy to do up there. We'll have that completed by the end of this year. And then we have 100% of we have 80% of the Justin property up in the Yukon. Mm-hmm. It's already earned.
Now, what is management's philosophy? Are you looking to build a mine or arbitrage?
What we do is our intentions are always to, you proceed as though you're going to build a mine. You always do that. Mm-hmm. But you always know there's going to be a buyer at some point, because in the industry today, most of the juniors are generally used for the exploration process, and the majors are, they cut back on their exploration budgets because the juniors are doing the work for them, and then they come to the table with an offer, and that's we're good at that. I sold my last company, Bayfield, to New Gold. Tim and Ron were involved in Copper Canyon. They sold that to Nova Gold. And then Ron, we all know Ron's history is stellar in terms of M&A. So it's, you always listen to offers, no matter if you want to build a mine or not. Personally, I don't know enough about building mines, but I do know about, how to get there.
Fair enough. Switching gears, I learned from Rick Rule and Doug Casey that the people running the business are equally, if not more important, than the latent material in the ground. Mr. Pettit, please introduce us to your board of directors, and what unique skill sets do they bring to the table?
Well, as I just mentioned, our chairman, Ron Netolitsky, is one of the best explorers in the business. He he loves geochem, and that's where he starts with that and moves forward. And he is, as far as the Golden Triangle goes and as far as Saskatchewan goes, he knows more than most people. There's a very few people in at his level. Tim Termundi, who's a very active director, he started his career with Ron right out of university, and has worked with him very exclusively for years, his whole career, and has a tremendous grounding, and he has a successful project generating company called Eagle Plains. And then there's myself, who, I'm on generally the corporate side. I handle all the administration. It's all out of my office. The accounting, legal, governance, everything, all generates from my office. And then Cornell McDowell is running the program, and he runs as tight a ship as anybody. He's almost a military guy in terms of his efficiency, and he keeps our costs down, which is good. This is an expensive area we're working in, and it's easy to lose control. And last year was phenomenal. This year it looks like our drilling costs are even lower. Our guaranteed flying time is coming in under budget, so that's excellent. I met him on another project. He was overseeing the drilling and everything on 130,000 meters of drilling I did on a copper project. And then we have some really good advisors. Henry Omack is almost like Ron up in this area, in the Golden Triangle. He started up there years and years ago, and he was one of the underlying owners of one of the properties that we consolidated into one package. So he's a wealth of knowledge. And the other fellow, Mike Roberts, came with the Northern project property that we put into this land package. He came from Kiska, and he did a lot of drilling. So he's coming up with some really good information. So these guys are key. They are. Rick and Doug are serious about what the management. What's their success level. What's their knowledge base. All that stuff. It's very important.
Well, you've conveyed serially successful and germane to the task at hand. It seems that the board of directors, they're the right people to have here. Tell us more about James Pettit. What makes him qualified for the task at hand?
Well, I got asked that once, and I started saying, well, I started and then I stopped, because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I spent a short period of time working for a company that was expanding its restaurant chain in Western Canada. Probably 1 year. The rest of the time from high school, I was self-employed. And that's, my background is, and I share an office with an individual that started an organization called Young Entrepreneurs Organization, and it's now a worldwide enterprise. It's like Young Presidents Organization, that sort of thing, and I think they've kind of amalgamated their two organizations. But he started it, and we're very like-minded. This industry we're in is, it's perfect for somebody with an entrepreneurial mindset.
What can you share with us about the technical team?
The technical team is as good as it gets. Because of Ron's background, he's done so many things, and he's discovered, very few people have done what he's done, from the discovery process to the completion, to either a sale or into production. That's key. We take the information he has to offer and utilize it. He's not overly active with us, but he's there. Tim is very active. Very active, and has done enough of this M&A business that like myself, we're there, we can do it, but then we have access to the people to move it along to whatever stage needs to be done, even production.
Let's discuss your share structure. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a moving target right now because warrants are being exercised because the stock price has moved up, obviously. But right now there's about 83 million shares issued and outstanding, and fully diluted it's about 101 million. And that's changing because there's a lot that the fully diluted these warrants are coming down, and I suspect over the next month we'll probably have $1 million to $1.5 million just from warrant exercises, which is always great to see.
And actually, if all those warrants do get exercised, I think that frees up close to $5 million. Is that correct?
Yep, it would. But you don't normally see warrants getting exercised until they're close to their expiration date. So November, there's a whole series that are going to expire. So we're going to see those, because your prime season for work in the Golden Triangle is right now, through to maybe October. And you want to have what you're doing out there in the public domain, because what'll happen is, then September, October, November, you start hitting tax loss selling, that sort of thing.
How much cash or cash equivalents do you have?
We've got right now, prior to the financing that we've just announced, and it's closed. It'll close, looks like today or Monday. That's $4 million, plus I already had $2 million, plus the warrants, another $1.5 million, say. So, $6, $7.5 million maybe. Right in that range. It's changing daily, actually. But the financing we just closed was the lead order was with Eric Sprott, which was a good move. Eric's, everybody knows Eric. He's pretty aggressive, not afraid to back good gold deals, early stage deals. We also have a fund in there called Palisades. So it was the allocation that came down to, there was only about 500,000 shares that I could allocate to insiders and friends and good shareholders.
What is the burn rate?
Burn rate right now, let's just say G&A and not in the field, but the G&A burn rate here is probably 50,000, 40 to 50,000 a month actually, and then the burn rate in the field, I gotta think it's about 300,000 to 400,000. Currently, it's going to escalate shortly with this new financing. Going to be more people, probably another drill. But 60% of our budget will be drilling and helicopter costs.
Okay, which kind of leads to my next question. But if you would please expand upon it, if you can, talk to us about cash flow distribution. What is the ratio between cash spent and tangible assets on the balance sheet?
Well, these companies, what are tangible assets? What can we sell? Your asset base is the value that you're given for the project. As far as tangible assets go, we've got it's pretty much a paper value. Any assets that we have, I own a little bit of stock. The company owns a little bit of stock in other companies because we might have sold a property, so I've got shares in other companies, and that's maybe $500,000. But the money we're spending generally goes into it just gets built up over time as losses or not debt as per se, but that's what you do. You're building up losses because these companies spend a lot of money, and if they have assets to build on, great, that's excellent.
Right. How much debt do you have?
Well, there's no debt.
Okay. And who are some of your institutional investors? I know you referenced Mr. Sprout there, and that's a great name to have, by the way.
Well, yeah, Eric is probably now the largest shareholder. Institutionally, we only have a few. There's a fund out of Europe that has a very large position, but they would probably be now number 3. And then there's a couple of individuals. The fund side of things isn't. This is a big retail shareholder base. That's why I trade so much. Like we're trading millions of shares a day, and that's good. That's as far as I'm concerned. When I look for a stock, I don't want to buy something I get stuck in. If something happens and I need to sell, I want to be able to sell.
Yeah, you want to get stock, not stuck.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But we got a large retail base with a few institutions.
And what is the float?
The float right now would be probably 40 million. It's very tightly held in terms of friends and family, and I would include the institutions there because I tend to know what they've got.
Okay. And you somewhat alluded to it earlier, but let's just to clear the record here. Are there any redundant assets such as patent mining claims?
No.
Okay. And what are the change of control fees?
Oh, good one. Good one. Right there, we keep it around 3 times at the most.
Okay.
Like for me, my contract would be 3 times my salary. Not owners. I've seen them pretty extreme. And by the way, I don't pay myself very much. None of us do.
And would you mind sharing that with us? What that is?
Yeah, $7,000 a month.
Okay. All right, sir. You survived
so I
the
keep
storm.
It. The reason I do that is because I am a little spread out. I've got a couple other companies that I'm involved in, and you don't have to lean on one company to pay you a large amount. In this business, I consider 150 a lot of money a month.
Yes.
I do, and but I can spread that out amongst a couple other companies, and I don't spend a lot of time on anything else other than this, but I'm there if they need help.
All right, you survived the storm. Multi-layered question here. What is the next unanswered question? When should we expect results? And what will determine success?
Well, I'm thinking probably within 2 weeks. I've been wrong before. The assay labs are they're now in full-on backup mode. When I was just up there last week, and I took the helicopter fly around, look at the various like the Eskay and KMS and Bruce Jack. I counted 20 drills turning just on the southern portion of the Golden Triangle. There's probably another 10 to 15 on the northern portion. So that core's going somewhere. And that's down probably to Terrace, where we're using a lab in Terrace, and they've just moved a bunch of our assay, our core or pulps over to Kamloops, where they have another lab, because they're getting pretty backed up. So I'm saying 2 weeks.
So the 2 weeks is a reference, of course, to Forest Kerr, just for the record.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's the only one that's got any work going on right now.
And what will determine success once we get those results?
Well, you know what? In the heart of the summer, high grade. gets success. As you move more, transition into the fall where the audience builds again, and they start paying attention to what could develop into a, how's this thing? It doesn't have to always be high grade, because you see some of the guys that are trying to develop a resource like Snip and GT Gold, they're not getting a lot of love in the market because the market's very small right now. A lot of people are away, they're on holidays, they're not paying attention. But if you put high grade out, you do galvanize the people that are looking. So, in my mind, that's what the market we're in right now. So high grade for now.
We've covered the good. What keeps you up at night that we don't know about?
Not having high grade? Keep me up at night. You know what I worry about the most right now? It's not even related to what we do, but they're called events, right? Worldwide events that can really shake the markets in general. And because the one that gets shaken the most is usually the venture exchange, because it is the riskiest. The one thing that can save it is something that would be good for gold. So that doesn't keep me awake at night. But the other events, the things that happen, there's it's rather tumultuous out there right now.
And finally, what did I forget to ask?
I think it's been pretty thorough, to be honest with you. I think you've been very thorough.
Well, thank you, sir. James, for someone listening that wants to get more information on Aben Resources, what is the website address?
The website address is www.abenresources.com. The symbols, TSX Venture Exchange, TSXV, is ABN. The OTCQB markets in the States is ABNAF. And Frankfurt is E2L2.
And for direct inquiries, please contact Don Myers at 604-639-3851. Again, that number is 604-639-3851. And last but not least, please visit our website, www.provenandprobable.com, where we interview the most respected names in the natural resource space. You may reach us at contact@provenandprobable.com. James Pettit of Aben Resources, thank you for joining us today on Proven and Probable.
Thank you very much.
And as a reminder for our listeners, Aben Resources is a sponsor of Proven and Probable.
Thank you for joining us today on Proven and Probable. Remember to like and subscribe for more conversations with the most respected names in the natural resource space. Check out our website at www.provenandprobable.com. The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.